Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Excellency Esports stream, where we are continuing on our coverage of week number 7 here in the mid-league. CB Rush taking game number 1 against the number 2 seed Fever very handedly. Icarus, I think we saw exactly why CB Rush is currently sitting at the top of the standings. And coming into draft here for game number 2, we got to be thinking Fever need to take whatever game plan they had written out on a piece of paper, just crumble it up, throw it away, and they got to start over and do something new.
The question, though, is when you're trying to draft something that's as easy as the last draft that we saw for Fever, very straightforward, team fight oriented, how do you throw that idea out the window and find something that's easier for yourself? First thing you could do is you can pick up a Volibear that isn't banned by your own team this time around. So you're putting me back on something that's comfortable in the jungle. We've seen him pull it out almost every single time that it's available, and now we see that they're not banning away the Volibear, they take away the Xin Zhao, and Xayah is still up and available for CB Rush or for Fever, which either one of these teams. So we can also see that we get Evil Zara back on another comfort pick as well. That's not going to be that Kai'Sa, who's seen a lot of nerfs over the past several patches.
Exactly. Getting that Volibear is especially critical for Fever, given how Icarus back in the lineup for CB Rush is none other than last season's first team All-Pro top laner, the one and only Rutledge, back in the lineup, taking away one of his signature picks. Certainly ideal for Fever. CB Rush taking their time with their second pick on the red side. Frosty going to be back on the Lissandra pick that we just saw him on, and a Caitlyn coming out. What do you think about that bot lane lock-in?
I love Caitlyn. Caitlyn's actually my main AD carry, my highest champion point mastery on any champion in the game. I think this champion is just so oppressive in the early laning stages of the game. And when you're playing off against Evil Zara, he doesn't have the most damage per game, and he doesn't have the best laning phase stats for himself. He does tend to come into the mid to late game a lot stronger than almost any other carry, the AD carry though, which is why we see such high kill percentage for Evil Zara. He's really great at staying safe in the laning phase and then coming into the mid to late game and just picking up kill after kill off the back of the team fight prowess that Fever has. And with the likes of the Xayah that they're able to pick up this time around, which I like to see they switch to away from the Ashe, it means that he gets to stay even more safe. He's going to have that range that's going to be further than Kai'Sa, and he's going to have self-peel for himself, so he doesn't have to worry about getting collapsed on by this Lissandra. He doesn't have to worry about getting, shot with the ace in the hole from Caitlyn. And I like to see that they're going back to comfort for every pick here for Fever, and this is the Fever that we need to see coming into this game.
I am a little worried, though, about the Victor lock-in. I know this is a much more comfort pick for Providence in the mid lane, something he's had success on, this Victor pick, the past couple weeks, but we saw even him just kind of sit in the lane, not really given an opportunity to scale on the likes of Orianna last game against CB Rush. He's going into Frosty's Lissandra once again. Icarus, do you think the switch up of the matchup is going to lead into anything good for Fever? Because I'm not entirely sure. I feel like it's just going to be two mages kind of fighting together.
I think that what Victor does for Providence is it gives him a little bit more viability in terms of being able to provide for himself in these mid to late game team fights. With Orianna, yes, you have so much potential to find that super big shockwave that's going to absolutely decimate your opponent, but a lot of times you need to have somebody else that can help guide the ball into the enemy team, or you have to wait for the opponent to step into an area where you can place your ball and step into a choke point. And by the time that happened for TL Providence in the last game, he was just too far behind. Acid was jumping on him 24/7. He couldn't blow up the full tank Xin Zhao, and then Frosty or Debay was able to get on top of him and follow up and then just blow up that Orianna. When you're playing the Victor, you have a lot more just self-peel. You have a lot more damage in your kit naturally that allows you to take 1v1s, that allows you to just trade damage with your opponents that doesn't require a full team fight setup. What I am scared for, though, here is that CB Rush has locked in that Braum once again for Nelson, and that's going to do a lot in terms of being able to peel for the backline members of CB Rush, and from shutting down the Xayah that Evil Zara loves oh so much.
Nelson 3-0 on the Braum last week, just in the Death Cards Academy show match. Played it 3 times, got 3 dubs, looking to keep the Braum train rolling. In CB Rush, after locking in one of Nelson's favorite supports, they also take away the Leona, take away the Thresh, and this is exactly what I was potentially thinking for a response. Icarus, Rakan getting hovered right now. Is that what you want to see get locked in here?
That's actually a fantastic pick, I think, here for the side of Fever. It's going to provide some hard engage options with a lot of range that Fever needs if they want to try and jump onto the Caitlyn. And it's also not going to be something that can be blocked out by the Braum like the likes of a Nautilus, who was left open as well from CB Rush. So the classic Xayah Rakan pairing in the bottom lane will provide that ranged engage. Sure, Rakan does have to throw his body into the fight, but can easily use that Battle Dance in order to get right back out. And from there, you have the Volley Bear follow-up. You can have Victor with the Chaos Storm and the Gravitational Field to throw it all down on top, and Xayah just putting out a feather after feather there. What is scary is that this Kindred has been picked up for the side of CB Rush, which kind of does negate a lot of that. Again, the AoE team fighting prowess that Fever likes to go for with that Battle Dance that Rakan has. He wants to go in, he wants to gather everyone up so that you can get the Stormbringer and the Chaos Field all going at the same time. But when you put down the Lamster Spite, it stops a lot of that instant burst damage from blowing up the backline members of CB Rush. So every time you see Fever getting something that they want, every time you see them getting that AoE, that teamfight prowess composition that they want, you see something coming in from CB Rush that's giving them pick potential, that's giving them a counter to the playstyle that Fever wants to be playing.
Yeah, after Silas and Gwen were taken away, Rutledge is going to be locking in that set to go up against Stubby's Kled. Both of the top laners here for the two teams here, Stubby and Rutledge, coming out with some of their more obscure pocket picks here. We don't see these champions come out too often. I'm actually interested to see if this is one of Rutledge's first set games. I think this is only Stubby's second game on the Kled, but he did pick up a win on it, I believe. Double check in here. Yeah, 4-1-11 against Elventus Amber Elite all the way back in week 5. We'll have to see if against Rutledge he's going to be able to come out with another solid performance. A lot riding on this match, Icarus. This is Fever's response. This is what they've got cooked up here for their blue side draft. What do you want to see in terms of gameplay to try to turn things around on the Rip? Because draft's one thing. We're also kind of hoping Fever makes some more plays happen here in game 2.
I think already with this draft, it's a lot more Fever than we saw in the last game. Yes, we did see a lot of like classic Fever picks coming in, but I like to see this brawly style, this want to fight not just in team fight situations, but want to go toe-to-toe from very early stages. And a lot of that really does come down to the fact that Fever didn't ban their own Volley Bear. I think it's just such a necessary pick for Zongi that he has a champion that can go for those, you know, level 1, 2, 3 trading patterns, especially into a Kindred that if Fever and Zongi can get on top of Acid and shut down this Kindred who is going to be fairly squishy in the early stages with some lane priority from their laners, you can see the opposite of the last game actually, where Acid was invading onto Zongi. Instead, this time around, we can see Zongi going up against Acid, taking away the double scuttle this time around, looking to trade into this Kindred and prevent the scaling of this jungler from CB Rush. And if they're able to find themselves an early lead, which I think they have a lot more tools for themselves this time around, then we can see Fever really pull out the second game here.
Well, Necrox going back in on the Fever boys. A lot of excellency points, guys. Remember, you guys can predict using channel points who you guys think is going to come out on top here in game number 2. CB Rush again in game number 1. Icarus just looking so dominant. Not a lot of windows of opportunity for Fever to try to step in this time around. I mean, you got Stubby on a similar engaged champion. Who else do we want to kind of see really have to step up here in game 2 to make a big impact?
really the name of the game, and we talked about it so far, is going to be on Zongi to find more early aggressive plays with this Volibear pick that he's just so comfortable on. I also do want to see, you know, TL Providence use that teleport a little bit more aggressively this time around. You know, you had the teleport available during that top lane dive. It didn't come out, and so your jungler got put behind versus the likes of a very aggressive early game champion such as the Zinja that Acid was piloting. So with the Victor here, you farming up is going to be a fair option, but still look for those teleports. Try and get those passive stacks up as quickly as possible so that you can start wave clearing and really preventing this Lysandra from roaming around the map and making plays with the team and looking for those picks. Instead, when you have that lane priority, that allows for Zonga to go for more aggressive plays. On the side of CB Rush, though, they're going to be looking to try and really play around this bottom side, I do believe. Xayah Rakan does have a fairly strong matchup, but Rakan, if he gets hit with that Winter's Bite or concussive blows from the Braum, it can easily be punished by the side of Debay and Nelson. CC'd, and once that happens, Rakan, he has a lot of mobility, but he doesn't have a whole lot of tanky stats for himself. Most of it is most of his ability to impact team fights is from how much mobility he has. The ability to go in, CC everyone, and then dip back out. But when you're facing a Braum, that's so much harder. That's so tricky. So I'm expecting we're going to see some very aggressive plays, potentially pre-level 6 here from the bottom side of CB Rush in order to shut down Evil Zarya and not allow the Xayah to scale into the mid game like he normally likes to do.
Yeah, just like he's done so many times before. And on the side of CB Rush, Icarus, we got to think they just want to keep doing exactly what they've been doing, playing well as a team, surviving the lanes, not falling too far behind, yet still having the open communication, making the same plays together. And I mean, we saw in game number 1 just how well they can play around Acid on the Xin Zhao. Him and Nelson almost got 100% kill participation together. The Yuumi had participated 13 out of 15 kills. Acid 14 out of 15. CB Rush, they know how to play together. This is some of their comfort now coming in. Nelson on the Braum. Acid, I don't know if we've actually seen on the Kindred. We saw Fallen Artemis on the pick so much during last season that I don't think Acid got his hands on the champion too much. We'll have to see if this kind of new champion form is going to make a big impact. Icarus, before we head onto the Rift, what's your lane to watch going into game 2?
My lane to watch coming into game 2 here, top lane is probably the most exciting matchup. I'm an AD carry man, so I'm trying to stay away from the bias versus bottom side, especially with that Caitlyn there. But I think if we're going to see a whole lot of action on this Rift, it is going to be towards that top side of the map. The Kled set and the Volibear jungle versus the Kindred is just screaming for a lot of top side action here.
Fever looking to try to stop the CB Rush of momentum here. They are making quick work through the top half of the standings. They started with the bottom, now they're here. Icarus, Cam, and Gunjin are going to be on the Rift for you guys. They're ready for game number 2. Gunjin's all connected in. Don't click out of that browser. We'll be back in just a bit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are here with our game 2 tonight between FVR and CB Rush, as FVR had quite a long pause for Zongi, did lose his internet, but he is now back, and we are going to be playing out game 2. However, FVR will be losing their first 3 bans in game 3 tonight as punishment for going over the 10-minute pause timer for this game.
30 seconds until minions spawn. Minions have spawned.
Yes, Gungeon, I think you are still muted in OBS, as I had a little bit of a pause in the game as well, so I'm not 100% sure we are synced up either. But in this game specifically, you did mention that there is an interesting jungle matchup here, as we do have that Volibear, which is such a comfort pick for Zongi, but we also have the Kindred for Acid, also such a good comfort pick for himself as well. So we are probably going to be having a little bit of a faster clear speed for the Volibear, but late game and mid game, especially for that damage, is going to be going over to Acid on the Kindred, as it is much easier to kite around, especially with that Lamb's Rest, but definitely able to turn the tide of an entire team fight and potentially the entire game as well.
Yeah, and again, what would mid-league be without some unfortunate mutes and some unfortunate pauses? But we're back, and you mentioned it, the scaling advantages with CB Rush once again. They are going to be looking for some damage with the Lovers Duo bot lane, but not much. And this is the lane that I really want to focus on for the side of FVR. In game number 1, they did have the Kai'Sa Braum. It was strong. They tried to force it with the early level 3 Hecarim gank, but nothing ended up happening. And the Bay and Nelson were just able to scale up with that Ezreal Yuumi pick. And you saw the power of Nelson on that Yuumi was able to just become such a nuisance, kind of amp of these tanks to immense health, to immense unkillableness. And in game number 2, now with this comfort pick for Zara with Rice on this engaging Rakan pick, I'm excited to see what they can do, and I hope that Zongi, with this kind of early game oriented pick of the Volibear, can really make something happen. Because again, if we get into a scaling war, I give it to the side of CB Rush, because again, whenever they get into those 30-minute time games, they have the knowledge, they have kind of the experience to really play out those late game scenarios.
Absolutely. With that Lovers Duo especially, it is a little bit more of that classic picks that we did see a lot of those old school picks last game. And then again, with this Lovers Duo again in this game as well, it's that classic, you know it's going to work if they do get into late game. And with that Comfort for Evil Zara as well, it's just going to be so strong if they are able to get there, which is something that we saw from CB Rush's bot lane last game, or this game, they do have that more early game central where they do have that strong poke, strong siege from the Caitlyn, and then Braum is there to just keep her alive.
And Cam, we hit the Scuttle Crab lottery, because there's going to be a fight around top side fight with the Scuttle Crab.
Okay, we gotta love these early Scuttle fights. You gotta love seeing it from MSI, as they are going to be going in onto Rutledge here, but does have such a strong shield from the set W. That is going to be that first blood going down to Zongi, as Frosty forced to flash away here. Acid finds the smite onto the Scuttle Crab, but this is a double kill down for Zongi so far. Acid forced to flash away, but he's going to be pulled right back over for a kill for Providence.
And Acid making the blabber play. They get the Scuttle Crab, they get the mark, but was it worth it at all? Giving 3 kills over to the side of FVR. Head scratching. Honestly, I was going to talk about the kind of the casino game that you play with Kindred's first marks, and it felt like they kind of ended up tails going in favor of the side of FVR, but CB Rush said, we're just going to take the fight, and they lose it completely. A lot of gold going over to Zongi, kind of expediting that early game strength. And now I really want to see him make something happen in these lanes, because he got a line share's worth of that gold. He got a line share worth of that lead, and now he can really take over, because he can really control the pace of this early game.
Absolutely. This is what we saw from Acid last game on that Sinzao pick, where he did get that 2-0 lead, and they were able to find enough leads in the late game to close out with it. But now Zongi is in the same position Acid was in last game, where he is sitting at this early 2-0, but he is down in CS, and he is currently down in pressure, as Acid does find that scuttle and that mark on for himself, and he could potentially look to find a second mark on those chickens as well.
He gets the scuttle. He is going to try to look for the invade onto the Raptor camp, and it looks like he's going to be able to just get it because of the pathing that Zongi had just did take him into that topside camps. Providence is going to try and contest and do some sort of interference, but it looks like Acid should be able to pick up that second mark. He's going to be sitting on 2 marks in 5 minutes, but giving over those 3 kills is going to be very rough for him. His jungle camp pathing is kind of delayed just because he wasn't able to clear out that topside camp, so a lot of those topside camps, including the Krugs, are going to be very low level. So in terms of jungle cycling, advantage to the side of Zongi just because of that early level 1. And the biggest thing that we didn't talk about, and this is something that's huge for Victor, as a Victor player myself, Providence picking up 3 of those, not even kills, but 3 of those kill shares. He picks up the really early Victor E-Laser evolve. So he's going to be able to push in Frosty and really stop any of those roams we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, definitely. Like you were saying earlier, Frosty definitely tries to play for these roams, and we did get to see it a little bit in game 1, but we are looking to see a lot more of it in game 2, especially on a Lysandre, who did just hit level 6 just now, as it does look like Providence has that first roam time for bot lane, as actually Fever able to secure the first dragon in this game with that early lead for Zongi. But with these early leads for bot lane though as well, we could be seeing a dive here as Nelson, he is going to be stuck under his tower there. Debay already knows he's dead. There is a TP coming down from Rutledge, but I mean, he is already dead. There's not much of a play here to be had, as they could potentially find a pick onto Zongi. Are they going to continue chasing it, as Rutledge, he knows he TP'd, he knows that he could lose his wave up top, but not going to be able to find a whole lot there for themselves.
And this all stems from that early game play. Providence picking up that E-Laser evolve. He's able to shove in Frosty so hard that he's going to be able to make the plays, but Zongi gets caught out.
Oh no, Zongi dying once again for this top scuttle. He finds the stun onto Acid, but that's going to be his own shutdown going over to Frosty, and Acid yet again finding this mark onto the top scuttle.
Cam, I want to talk about this. Acid has 4 marks at 7 minutes, even though he pretty much just yeeted his entire team off the edge. He said, guys, I need you all to die for my sins. The sins kind of worked out because this Kindred, this is the most hyper-scaling Kindred pick I've ever seen, because he's been able to get mark after mark after mark, just kind of outpacing Zongi in this jungle match, but he's going to be able to invade onto this I'm just blanking on the camp name, but he's gonna get caught out.
Yeah, Acid is trying to go in for that Gromp mark there, as he could be taking up that 5th mark, and he is gonna use that Lamb's Respite just to survive a little bit longer. It does look like he will not make it out of that one. Very unfortunate for him, as the Volar Bear is just able to do a little bit of enough damage, enough over the wall.
Acid is absolutely yeeting this early game for those marks. Ladies and gentlemen, do not get this greedy for Kindred marks. Do not die this often, but we're going to have to see if it's worth it, because again, the ball is now in Fever's court. They have the gold lead. They have the advantage with Providence being able to perma-shove mid lane. They have the early dragon. They need to be able to make sure that this game doesn't last past that 25-minute mark, because if you get past that 25-minute mark, you have Acid, who is so scaled up on these Kindred marks. You have Rutledge, who's going to be able to yeet back anybody in that front line back into his team. And again, the comp really does detach. So if this game ends up going late, which it shouldn't, it's going to be advantage for the side of CB Rush. But with the lead that Fever have right now, again, they have the advantage, but they're going to really need to take it over. But Acid's looking for a play top.
Yeah, they do throw that mark down on the Stubby in this top lane, as definitely Acid is trying to pick up as many marks as he can, as he knows he is behind in gold, but he is taking this tower here, and that's going to be the flash in Stubby, picking up that kill, trying to find the second kill on Rutledge, and that's the double kill for Stubby underneath his own tower.
And in 2 seasons, I've never said that Acids ran it that much in the early game, but my oh my, he wants these marks incredibly bad, forces the play onto Stubby in the top lane, but they just don't have enough damage. They had already used the showstopper, they'd already used all of their cooldowns, they try to force something, but nothing comes up heads, and now bot lane.
Oh no, now they're trying to make a play here. Bot lane flash already onto Debay. Debay is already dead. Nelson now trying to survive under his own tower. The Knight takes down, and Zongi picks up his 4th kill of the game.
And this game kind of feels like a roller coaster. We're just going up, 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 and for the side of CB Rush, somebody get me off of Zongi's wild ride right now, because Zongi is making plays all around the map. Providence is able to move immediately over to anything that happens because of the Victor E evolve first, being able to shove in the Lysandra, and it feels like the situations are now swapped, but there's a 4K gold lead for the side of Fever in this early game, and they are not looking to stop at all.
Absolutely. That 4K being in 8 kills ahead. Currently only 1 dragon, but there is that next dragon spawning in just 60 seconds here. As, once again, Acid looking like he wants to find this gank on the top lane, and his mark is still sitting onto Stubby, but he doesn't even have Lamb's Respite up quite yet, as he does do quite a lot of damage, but tower diving someone that you just gave a double kill to could go very wrong, as Rutledge is going to take that first tower shot, but luckily they do not commit fully again.
Yeah, and he's just pathing immediately. You see, some Kindreds are subtle. They'll like mark one side of the map and gank another. Acid marks exactly who he wants to kill. He's like, I'm marking Stubby. I am only ganking Stubby's lane. And again, it's fair because you know that you've given up so much control in that bot and mid side that they're gonna have to make plays on this top side. But again, plays.
Stubby's going to TP and trying to find the pick on Acid, but not quite, as Rutledge is here as well, trying to make sure this team is alive. Rice every meal taking so much damage, but Stubby does even more to Rutledge, as Frosty now trying to make it out with Lysandra is going to have to flash away there. Acid trying to find this 1v1 onto Stubby, but he is 2 levels down on this Kindred, and Providence going to pick up that kill again as well.
And the controlled playstyle that we usually know CB Rush for is completely out of the window because Acid picked Kindred. And Providence making a play bot lane.
Providence finding this TP play bot lane. DeBay and Nelson have not been allowed to play this game. DeBay already dead, Nelson forced to flash away.
And if you're DeBay and Nelson, like, what do you even say? You're like, guys, I thought we were scaling. Like, hello, any scalers on the team? Because they're just forcing fights over and over again. And again, it's all on the back of Acid because he's looking aggressively for jungle invades when he's already 0-4. And again, I give him credit because he's looking to turn the game around. He's looking for plays that can try and win them the game. But they're so far behind in items. They're so far behind in tempo that every play they go for, they're always a man down. They're always items down. And they're getting punished over and over and over again. And this is what I like to see from the side of Fever. When you have a team on their back foot, you want to press. Do not let them get any sort of breath under them. Don't let them get any sort of advantage. They're going to give over the Cloud Dragon because who needs clouds when you can stack up 3 Mountain Dragons? Zongi going for the big brain play from game number 1. And again, they have a 4.4k gold lead at 12 minutes. And now with Stubby hitting his Gore Drinker, with Providence being close to hitting his Luden's Echo, there's just not much that CB Rush can really do at this point, besides just hold the line and hope they can make it to that 25-minute mark.
It is definitely very nice that CB Rush were able to pick up that first dragon for themselves, but in order to turn this game around, they do also need to start picking up some of these shutdowns for themselves. 300 on Victor and Kled apiece, as well as 150 on Volibear and Xayah could mean a lot if they are able to get that onto either Frosty or especially Acid, sitting so far behind on this Kindred. Yes, he has those marks, but those marks don't mean a whole lot if your team is 4,000 gold behind.
Yeah, the marks need some items and damage behind them to really get stuff done. I will say, as the Rift Herald is dropped in the mid lane, the one thing I like about CB Rush, even when they are far behind, they never lose themselves too much to the game, and they always still establish vision control. You can see that in terms of vision control, it is actually CB Rush favored. They have more wards on the map, they have more jungle entrances and quadrants kind of warded out and made sure that they have control of. So at least they have some sort of idea and can make some informed decisions in the game. So at least they're not losing themselves on that end. They're just losing themselves so far behind in terms of tower plating and tower gold and kill gold in general that even with all the, you can have all the vision control in the world. You can be the most, you can be an omniscient narrator that can see everything in the map. But if you're just getting your head caved in by Zongi on this Divine Sunder of Volibear, there's not much else you can do.
It reminds me of the meme where you spam it in Twitch chat where it's like, CLG is good at the League of Legends, but they need to work on, and then you list like 10 things, and it's like, oh yes, well, the pretty good at the game in one way, but you got to win in more than one way. And currently, it does look like Fever has really been making sure that they have pulled out some of their more comfort picks, which we did get to see last game, but this game especially, they've just really made sure that these picks have worked in a more play style that they are more used to, as so many early game fights is definitely something that Fever is more accustomed to. As last game, we did get to see CB Rush in that position where they did find the early game lead, but it is not through this Fiesta almost style of play where they were able to secure their lead more in a slow and controlled and making sure that we win without taking those super high risk, high reward plays.
Yeah, and Fever is all about volatility, and that's why you can always say that regardless of where they are on the map, as Providence is going to run down Frosty.
Oh
but
no,
Acid
Frosty.
looking to
It is
respond.
so hard to survive Providence, but Acid could look to turn this as they are trying to find that damage onto Providence. Frosty surviving for just a little bit longer in that Lamb's Respite, and that is going to be their shutdown going over to Frosty. This is exactly what CB Rush needs to try and just turn this game around, as Rutledge could try and find a 1v1 here in the top lane as well, but there is 2 people behind him, 3 people behind him, even from Fever, as he is going to find that 4-man ult into his own death.
What a showstopper. Almost stopped his heart as well as Rutledge goes down in the top lane. And again, that's what I wanted to talk about, is that the reason everyone likes Fever and why we root for them as a kind of like a king killer and can be a team that really can take down CB Rush is the volatility in their play. They will always try to make the aggressive plays in the early game. They'll always try to make something happen. And it can go good or bad. It can, again, it's like a coin flip. You can either strike heads, which is this game where they just snowball all around the map. They can kind of just run you through and really take advantage and end the game in 25 minutes. But it can also go tails like in game number 1 where they tried to make early plays and it just never worked out. They just got slowly choked out of the game and there was not much they can do. And that Providence play is kind of a key aspect of that, is that Providence is still looking for these 1v1s in the sideline when he doesn't need to. He's already so incredibly strong. His team is making a 4-man play in the top side. They're making something happen already, but Providence already is like, hey guys, let me try to also show off. Gets punished for it, gives over the shutdown. Again, CB Rush is not out of the woods yet. They're going to need to pick up a lot more of those shutdowns, but again, a good kill for the side of CB Rush to show that they can at least hold the line.
Definitely, and having both of their 2 kills that they currently have to their name on Frosty with the scaling Lysandre pick, and especially a comfort scaling Lysandre pick for Frosty as well, is just going to be so strong if they are able to find more with this. Leandre is now finished as well as a blasting wand, as they could be looking to try and fight for this first mountain dragon of the game specifically, as it does look like CB Rush currently has all of the bot lane river control, but that does not mean that they have full control over the fight, as they are still sitting at an 8k gold deficit. This is 2 TPs coming down bot lane. We are going to start the fight immediately as Providence is caught out underneath his own tower. Stubby is not here fast enough to save his own mid laners. Now he could be caught out under the tower as well. Zongi finally arriving at this fight, Debay using that heal for just a little bit more movement speed. And now CB Rush, they have 5 members here, but all 5 members are very low on HP currently, and it does look like they want to fight for this dragon so badly, but know that if they do walk into that river at this point, they're probably going to give a lot more kills over than they are able to take. TP coming back from Frosty just to make sure that he's the one at max HP, just so that they could try and take this, but Fever sitting here on the bottom side of the river are trying to go for the smite steal, complete 50-50 over this dragon. Rice Meal using that ultimate, trying to get in the backline. They're one-shotting Acid, absolutely destroyed. Dragon still up. That is going to be the dragon going down to Zongi. Now we have the team fight already. 4 members dead from CB Rush to Bay. Just has to stand there, watch the rest of his team die. That is the ace for Fever.
And it's a absolute rout for the side of Fever, and it's an absolute head scratcher for the side of CB Rush. I like the guerrilla style warfare that they were kind of playing with. They're like, let's look for kills, let's try to make the play, let's try to preempt the dragon. But then after losing so much health, they just say, let's just fight for second drag. They're going to now give up a lot of kill gold. They're going to give up Rift Herald as well. And it's not a back-breaking play for the side of CB Rush, but it's one of those situations where it's like, you got the kill already. You're so far behind that trading 1 for a mountain dragon is just worth enough. But they try to be over-aggressive. They try to be too greedy. They try to be too cute. And they get punished. And Fever now with a 8,000 gold lead at 19 minutes, have the True Dragon advantage, now have the Rift Herald, and really can crack open this map.
Absolutely. It looked so good at the beginning for CB Rush, finding that early kill onto Providence underneath the tower. But then, I mean, going back in when more than half your team is less than half HP. I mean, you only had HP on Frosty, and yes, Frosty is your win condition, but Frosty can't really be going in 1v9 quite yet on this Lissandra, as, like you're saying, there is almost a 10,000 gold lead for Fever at this point. So it is just so hard to find a team fight, and the only way to do it is to find that pick, which they were able to do, but lost too much HP for it to continue.
And something I do want to mention is that Acid at 5 minutes had 4 marks, and at 19 minutes also has 4 marks.
Oh no!
So that Mark game that he was playing, he almost got us in the first half, but in the second half he's kind of cooled down because you know what? Maybe giving a 15 kill advantage to the enemy team is not the way you stack up on Kindred. So we will track that as we go. But with the advantage that Fever has right now, what do you really want them to kind of do, Cam? Because again, they have the lead, but they haven't broken open the game yet.
Yeah, this is a similar point in the game that we had in game 1, where there is such a massive lead in the favor of one team, and then they just try and play it as slow as possible. They know that they're going to outscale with Evil Zara and Zyra and Providence on this mid lane Victor here, but they're just going to play it as slowly as possible, making sure that they are going to try and scale up, get these waves, get the CS, get maybe even a Baron here, as well as they are sitting up in basically every single lane, as well as pressure just throughout the jungle. It's so hard for CB Rush to even face check this as Rutledge knows he can't even walk into this river.
Yeah, Rutledge can't walk into the river, and Frosty doesn't have TP here, so it feels like they're just gonna end up calling the Baron here. You don't want to see Fever really flip in, just look for the fight.
Rutledge is already dead. They're trying to find the engage onto the backline here. Acid immediately using that Lamb's wristband, trying to keep himself alive, but it is just not alive for long enough. Frosty now onto the next chopping block, and that's gonna be another kill down for Providence. At this point, Fever knows they just need to force fights. They need to start this Baron. They need to start these fights, and at this point, they found the 3 kills, and now they could just freely take this Baron with no contest.
And I like the reaction from Fever in that fight. They didn't want to flip for the Baron. They didn't want to just be too over-aggressive. They just look for the fight. They know they have the item advantage. They know they have the man advantage. So they just look to engage, get the engage with the backline. There's just no damage. The damage kind of profile from the side of CB Rush is so limited to Acid and Debate because again, Frosty's build is a lot more centered around CCing members and dealing that percent health damage. There's just not enough damage in the comp right now, so they can just run through. They end up picking up the Baron here as well, and all advantage to the side of Fever as they have a 10,000 gold lead at 22 minutes.
Absolutely. To answer your question earlier, this is certainly one way to close a game out, is to start a Baron, but then not want to finish it, as you find 3 kills for yourself for Favor, and then, oh yeah, we can just go take that Baron for ourselves now. And then they're probably going to be doing roughly the same thing here in around 50 seconds for that 3rd Mountain Dragon for themselves. The CB Rush so far behind at this point, now 10,000. This is certainly not something we get to see a whole lot from CB Rush, sitting so far behind, and it's definitely not the same consistency level that we are used to.
Yeah, and again, for the side of CB Rush, they like to play these slow, drawn-out games. So my biggest thing is that whenever they do end up falling behind, which is, again, very rare, they don't have kind of that playmaker to bring them back. When they fall this far behind, just like how they slowly choked out Fever in game number 1, they get slowly choked out in game number 2 because they're not going to be looking for these big hyphy engages to try to go for that miracle fight. They're going to just try to slowly play the game out and hope that something can happen. But right now, it feels like it's just control for the side of Fever. They're going to just 1-3-1, look for the play onto the Mountain Dragon. I like that CB Rush is looking for something onto Stubby, but with the Kled ultimate, there's just nothing they can do. Mountain Dragon to the side of Fever, and now they can just run the 1-3-1 again, just slowly play it out, and slowly eke out any chance of hope that CB Rush has in game number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely a lot safer and not something that we're used to from Fever, especially as now it could look like Stubby is caught out here, but he is trying to find that kill back on the Acid. So easy to kill Acid on the super behind Kindred, as he is going to use that Lamb's Respite, trying to live for a little bit longer, but that is a shutdown going over to Acid. His first kill of the game, but at what cost now? Losing their mid inhibitor and possibly even more with this Baron buff from Fever.
Yep, they're gonna end up losing up the mid lane inhibitor. They're gonna end up losing Stubby in the top side, but that's kind of what the trade you have to make if you're the side of CB Rush. You're not gonna get even trades. You're not gonna try to take a 1-for-1. So you have to make these guerrilla warfare-like plays and try to get some sort of influx of gold. They end up picking up the kill onto Stubby, but at what cost? As mid lane inhibitor does go down, Zara could get caught out here, but there's just not enough CC, not enough damage, and they get out of it. Fever, with the Baron buff, slowly about to time out, have kind of increased that gold lead up to 11k, but the big thing is that Mountain Dragon they picked up. They're going to set that Mountain Soul timer at about 28 minutes, and again, Fever just have to wait. They don't have to make too over-aggressive plays, but they have such a gold lead that they really can.
Yeah, absolutely. CB Rush here. On paper, they do outscale with that Kindred, with that Lysandra, but at this point, it would probably take us to around 60-minute games if we wanted to see anything from this Kindred and this Lysandra, unless we do have a lot of team fights suddenly come up in the favor of CB Rush. It is going to be so hard for them to make anything, but on the flip side here, we could be seeing something from Frosty, specifically in this jungle, as now Acid forced to flash over the wall already, but even Zara flashing with his own, and Zongi already picking up that kill onto Frosty, ulting into the backline. Nelson trying to keep the team for as long as possible. Rutledge ulting into the team, and they are able to find one kill back, but it's not going to be enough, and it was only Rice every meal. Debay flashing over just to find his own death. That is the unstoppable ultimate going down underneath those Nexus towers, and that is yet another clean ace for Fever.
Ace for the side of Fever, and this should just be the game. They have all of the members that they need to just break down these two towers. And at 26 minutes in, Fever pick up a dominant game number 2 win over CB Rush, routing them in game number 2, saying we are not going down without a fight. We're gonna take a game off of you. And now, going into game number 3, Fever has really kind of changed the tempo of the series, kind of changed the momentum of the series with such a dominant win from every single member on the side of Fever.
Absolutely. This has been the end of an era. This is the end of the 17-game winning streak from CB Rush, now for the first game of a lifetime going over to Fever. This is such a huge win for them, and this is only 1-1 in the series so far, as we do still have a third game to see who it takes that 2-1 for tonight. And for a little bit more analysis on this game too, we are going to be throwing it down for our Icarus and Mac Dewey.
My goodness, Icarus, upset of the century, fight for bragging rights. I mean, this series is starting to deliver. I don't know if Blue Side is just outright better, but Fever may have gotten a little game 2 power spike action and seriously popped off here.
I'm going to put it down to it is nothing but comfort picks across the board here for Fever. We see the Volley Bear show up huge for Zongi when he's playing something that he knows how to play. We talked it down during the pre-show. We talked about it before this game even, that we saw Hecarim game 1 looks very uncomfortable, but he gets his hands on that Volley Bear because they don't ban it against themselves this time around. And suddenly he looks so clean. My man just went legendary in this game and slapping fools around left and right, making it look too easy. You get Providence on his Victor, wave clearing left and right, who finds an early lead with all of those stacks on his passive because of the assists he got in the early game, and Evilzar on the Xayah, making it look too easy with that power pick in the bottom lane. Rakan and Xayah duo lover lane there. Just everyone, once they're on their comfort picks here for Fever, just showing up huge.
Some serious matches made in heaven. As you were talking about Zongi on the Volley Bear, there's a reason he's gone for this champion. I mean, we were thinking about doing something with JoJo's for the pre-show. I think Volley Bear is seriously his stand. I mean, at this point, what a game from him. And even Stubby in the top lane on the Kled. All of Fever was really stepped up here in game number 2. I mean, I was asking you during the draft, Icarus, who you want maybe 1 or 2 players to step up, but the entire roster really coming together. Looking at the side of things for CB Rush, though, where do you think things went wrong for them here in this critical game?
Really what it came down to is, again, another early game lead that just snowballs out of control for the side of Fever this time around. We saw that top lane river fight that went poorly for CB Rush. They end up giving over 3 kills, and it just goes off from there. Providence gets 75 stacks on his passive, so he's able to just quickly get towards that Death Laser upgrade, and then he's able to shove in his lane. Frosty can't roam, and we see just time and time again, Providence is on the side lanes of the map. He's influencing the bottom lane, shutting down the AD carry and support combo of Debay and Nelson. Top side of the map, we see a botched turret dive coming in from Acid and Rutledge, so it means that even there, Stubby is taking on the 2v1 with that great absorbing top side laner in the Kled, and they just kept throwing themselves at Fever, and they kept trying to find fights when they're already far behind. You can't be doing that. You need to just be farming up. You need to be scaling, because that's what you do when you have the Caitlyn and the Kindred, is you look to farm, you look to scale into those mid to late game, into those later stages of the game when you have 3-4 items on your double 80 carry composition.
Well, as Providence was saying in chat, he's feeling a little bit better now about his conversation with Gunjan earlier in the week before this series. Let's go to this interview quickly before we get going with game number 3 draft. We'll be back by the start of it. Don't worry, you won't miss a thing. But let's roll the interview with Gunjan talking to the Fever mid laner.
And welcome to Excellency Mid-League Week 7. I am your caster, Gunjan, and I am here with Fever Soularion. We have the Fever versus CB Rush matchup this week, and so we have a member from Fever. Soularion, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited for the match. Excited to play on stream. You know, show how good we are. Show what we can do.
And so, Soularion, just for the people that don't know much about you, can you just say what role you play, some of your champions that you like to play, how long you've been playing League, and then kind of what your role on the team of Fever is?
I am the mid laner. My in-game name right now is TL Providence. I've been playing basically since like early season 1, like forever. I've been in the plat scene for a while, low diamond for a little bit, coming off of a focus season, and now I'm playing Excellency with Fever. I kind of joined as a sub, still kind of in flux. I don't know if I'll play out the whole season. We'll discuss that, but for now, I'm here. I'm here mostly to play control mages. I have some other, fun elements to my style. I promise I'm not the most boring control mage player in the world. But mostly I'm here to be the late game presence, to be that rock that really does his job, comes in, and just plays very well, very solid the entire time. And I think if you go back and you watch the Bucky's games, you get a good idea of what I could do in that role.
For Frosty, that matchup in the mid lane. Obviously, right now Frosty's been having a great season. CB Rush is standing at top of the ladder with that 17-1, and you guys do have the ability to catch up this week if you guys end up 3-0ing them. So, kind of talk to me about that matchup in the mid lane and kind of just competing versus Frosty and CB Rush.
Frosty is a good player. I imagine he's at least top 3 mid laner in the league with me and Patrick. Those are the guys I've been most impressed by. Obviously, I've played against Frosty before. We played 6 games against each other in Focus. So I do know him quite well. I think he's improving. I think he's taken big steps in the last month or so. There's a time where he'd be criticized a lot, but I think he's found the core champions that work for him. I think he's found the style that works for him, but I don't think that's going to be enough come Wednesday. I think it's going to be worse than it was when we met in Focus. I think it's going to be a good time for me.
Oh, that's spicy. I like it. I like it, Soularion. So, just talk to me about some of the other competition in that top 5, mainly focusing on the Buckies, the Death Cards, and the No Fear Wolves and Shadowblade Slash.
Yeah. Shadowblade, I like Shadowblade. Shadowblade are great people. Absolutely love the members of their team. I don't think they're playing super well right now. Maybe they can improve. Maybe they can do some stuff, but they definitely seem like the odd man out to me. No offense. Lovely, lovely people. I don't know much about No Fear. I won't comment on them too much. I think Bucky's is good, but Bucky's is kind of the team where if you beat them, you're good. Is kind of how I see it. I think they're a bit one-dimensional. I think they have some stuff to improve on. We'll see. They did beat No Fear though, so maybe I'm underselling them a bit. I think Death Card's Academy, very good team. I was impressed with some of the stuff they showed Rush, but I just don't think their mid-late game is polished enough. I think they have interesting ideas early game, but they're going to need to improve mid-late if they really want to take the next step and be in that finals conversation. So right now, I really think it's us and Rush. I think this Wednesday we're going to see which one's better between us, and I think that's going to show a lot.
Of the world, but a lot more flexibility is in the mid lane. Champs like Tristana, Lucian have been popping up, and so just talk to me about that mid lane role as a whole, kind of your champ pool, and your thoughts on the lane itself.
Well, if you go back and Array took them off his stream, so you can't watch them. But if you go back and look at the Bucky's games, I have a thing or two up my sleeve. We'll see if it comes out Wednesday, but I'm excited. It's a meta where you can show quite a bit. I don't think it's a good meta, but I have my tricks. It's gonna be fun.
Just kind of talk to me about those games upcoming, like the No Fear Wolves and the Degenerates Reform series, and also kind of your plans going into playoffs and how you guys feel about the playoffs in general.
Well, we kind of learned against Alventus. You can't take a series off. You can't take a game off. We played bad for a game in that series, and they played a great game, and they punished us. So, we have real teams in front of us. Obviously, we have Rush this week. Degenerates are a real team. They've proved to me they're real. If you mess around, they can beat you. Same with No Fear. No Fear, solid team. I think if we come in at our best, we can beat Rush, we can beat anyone. We can, go perfect. We could go 9-0 really if we play well enough. But it's just about being consistent and at the same time not getting too stressed, not getting too worried. At the end of the day, first seed, second seed doesn't matter too much. What we want is that bye and then just win in playoffs. That's what matters most. If we drop a game here or there, not going to be the end of the world. We're going to learn from it. We're going to improve. So that's really the mentality I have. Playoffs is all that matters.
Playoffs, again, yeah, playoffs where it counts. That's kind of where you make or break in this mid-league. Terms of just anything else, any words to any of your fellow competitors in the mid lane, in any of the teams, any kind of spicy trash talk that you guys have for the rest of the teams going into playoffs?
Well, Rush may remember I did give them advice. I gave them the advice that if they wanted to beat me, they had to ban out all the champions I play. They didn't take that advice in Game 4, and I Flame Horizon Frosty quite easily. And if they don't take my advice, I'm gonna do worse this time. So hopefully they've learned to respect my words and follow my advice.
Any words you want to say to either your teammates, any words you want to say to kind of the org itself, anything, any shout outs, the floor is all yours.
Fever are wonderful. Shout out Zani. He gets people very upset for very silly reasons. I don't know. If you know Zani, he's just a pretty good dude. The trash talk is pretty funny, but listen, guys, we're just chilling. We're just trying to have a good time. Mad respect to anyone who's putting the time in to this league, to really any League of Legends league. We all sacrifice a good part of our free time to this, and I think that makes you worthy of respect. And the trash talk, the banter, it's really just for fun here. It's really just trying to have a good time, trying to build some excitement. So don't let that take away from the respect. Shout out to all the Excellency staff. You guys do a great job. Even if you have us stuck at bottom in your power rankings now for the rest of the season, we forgive it. We forgive it. So, yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and I promise to show you good games now and till I leave.
Hey, we can't wait for that. On a wholesome note, thank you so much for the interview, Soularion, and we're gonna kick it back over to the casters, getting ready for game number 1 between Fever and CB Rush. Do not click anywhere else.